July 28, 1914. The world held its breath. A web of alliances, ancient rivalries, and burgeoning nationalism had finally reached its breaking point. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary had been assassinated a month prior, and now the Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. Like dominoes falling in slow motion, nation after nation was drawn into the conflict. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and then France. And when Germany invaded neutral Belgium, Great Britain entered the fray. What began as a regional dispute in the Balkans quickly engulfed an entire continent, and soon much of the globe. In the quiet countryside of Dorset, England, a young man named Thomas "Tommy" Atkins was just finishing his morning chores. He was 20 years old, strong from years of farm work, and possessed a quiet resilience that belied his age. News of the escalating war had reached even his remote village, carried by hushed whispers and urgent newspaper headlines. Tommy, like many young men of his generation, felt a surge of patriotism mixed with a naive understanding of what war truly entailed. He envisioned quick victories, heroic charges, and a swift return home. Little did he know, he was about to embark on a journey through the most brutal and transformative conflict humanity had ever witnessed. A journey that would test the very limits of human endurance. Tommy enlisted on August 8th, just 4 days after Great Britain officially declared war. He joined the Dorsetshire Regiment, eager to do his part. The initial training was rigorous, but filled with a camaraderie that felt invigorating. He learned to march, to shoot, to bayonet charge, all under the watchful eyes of grizzled sergeants who had seen service in distant corners of the empire. There was a palpable sense of excitement, a belief that they were part of something monumental, something that would shape the future. The propaganda posters, depicting brave soldiers and swift victory, fueled this optimism. Within weeks, Tommy found himself on a troop transport crossing the English Channel. The journey was a blur of seasickness and anticipation. He landed in France amidst the chaos of thousands of other fresh recruits. The sounds were different here, the distant rumble of artillery, the constant chatter of various languages, the heavy smell of damp earth and something acrid he couldn't quite place. He was immediately thrust into the Western Front, a sprawling, nightmarish landscape that would become his home for the next 4 years. His first taste of real combat came quickly, in the brutal opening salvos of the war known as the Race to the Sea. As both Allied and German forces desperately tried to outflank each other, a continuous line of trenches began to snake its way across Belgium and northern France, eventually stretching for hundreds of miles from the Swiss border to the North Sea. Tommy's unit was thrown into fierce skirmishes, battling for villages and crossroads. The romantic notions of war quickly evaporated. He saw men fall, heard their screams, and felt the searing heat of explosions. The precision drills of training felt distant and inadequate in the face of machine gun fire and artillery barrages. He learned to dig, to duck, to run, and most importantly, to survive. He witnessed the devastating power of modern weaponry, the kind of warfare no one had truly anticipated. As autumn gave way to winter, the fighting settled into the horrific stalemate of trench warfare. Tommy spent his days and nights in muddy, rat-infested ditches, constantly exposed to the elements, to enemy fire, and to the psychological toll of perpetual danger. The First Battle of Ypres in October and November 1914 was his crucible. Here, the British Expeditionary Force, outnumbered and outgunned, fought valiantly to hold the strategically vital town of Ypres against relentless German assaults. Tommy endured days of incessant shelling, gas attacks, and brutal hand-to-hand combat. The casualties were staggering, but the line held, barely. He saw friends die beside him, their lives extinguished in an instant. He learned to numb himself, to focus only on the next breath, the next command, the next moment of survival. He developed an uncanny ability to read the battlefield, to anticipate danger, to move with a calculated caution that saved his life time and again. The following year, 1915, brought little relief. The war of attrition continued, each side bleeding the other dry in futile assaults. Tommy participated in the Second Battle of Ypres in April, where the Germans unleashed chlorine gas on a massive scale for the first time. The sight of men choking, their lungs burning, their faces turning blue, was a horror that would forever be etched in his memory. He survived by quickly donning a crude, makeshift gas mask, the fear a cold knot in his stomach. The battle was a costly stalemate, but it highlighted the terrifying new dimensions of modern warfare. Later that year, he was moved south to the Loos sector. The Battle of Loos in September 1915 was another British offensive, marked by further use of poison gas, this time by the British themselves, with mixed results. Tommy was part of an advance that faced devastating machine gun fire. He saw the ground littered with fallen comrades, their bodies tangled in barbed wire, their cries echoing across no man's land. He learned the grim reality of going over the top, a desperate dash across open ground into a hail of bullets. He carried wounded men back, dodged shells, and somehow, through sheer luck and an almost supernatural instinct, emerged relatively unscathed. The year of the Somme. This was arguably the most infamous battle of the entire war, a symbol of its futility and immense cost. On July 1st, the British launched a massive offensive along the River Somme, hoping to break the German lines. The preceding week had seen the heaviest artillery bombardment in history, meant to destroy German defenses. However, much of the wire remained intact, and many German machine gunners had survived in deep dugouts. Tommy was there, part of the first wave. The whistles blew, and he scrambled out of the trench into a landscape of mud, craters, and constant gunfire. The sight was horrific. Thousands of men mown down in minutes, falling like wheat before a scythe. That single day, the British suffered nearly 60,000 casualties, almost 20,000 dead. The bloodiest day in British military history. Tommy advanced through the carnage, navigating barbed wire and the bodies of his fallen comrades. He fought in the ruined villages of the Somme, in the labyrinthine trenches, and across the devastated fields. He saw the first tanks used in battle, clumsy but terrifying machines that churned across the landscape, instilling fear in the enemy. He witnessed the introduction of aerial combat, planes dueling in the sky above the mud and blood. For months, the battle raged, a grinding, brutal struggle for mere yards of territory. Tommy survived countless close calls, his uniform shredded by shrapnel, bullets whistling past his head. He carried the weight of survivors' guilt, wondering why he was spared, when so many others, brave and good, were not. The Somme left an indelible mark on him, a deep understanding of the true cost of war. The winter of 1916 to 1917 was one of the coldest on record, adding another layer of misery to the trench experience. Tommy endured frostbite, trench foot, and the ever-present threat of disease. Yet he persevered, his spirit unbroken. In April 1917, the British launched the Battle of Arras, a well-planned offensive that saw significant initial gains, particularly at Vimy Ridge, where Canadian forces achieved a stunning victory. Tommy was involved in the later stages of the battle, pushing through the chalk tunnels and subterranean networks that lay beneath the town of Arras. He fought in cramped, dark spaces, the air thick with dust and the smell of cordite. The battle was intense, but it offered a flicker of hope that perhaps the stalemate could be broken. Just a few months later, Tommy found himself back in the Ypres salient for what would become known as the Third Battle of Ypres, or Passchendaele. This battle, from July to November 1917, became synonymous with mud, misery, and senseless sacrifice. The incessant shelling had churned the already waterlogged Flemish fields into a quagmire, a landscape of craters filled with thick, sucking mud. Men drowned in it, tanks became bogged down, and movement was agonizingly slow. Tommy slogged through the knee-deep mire, often under torrential rain, facing machine gun nests and fortified pillboxes. He saw horses and men disappear into the mud, their struggles futile. The objective was a small village called Passchendaele, and the cost of capturing it was astronomical. He fought in conditions that defied imagination, pushing forward inch by agonizing inch, witnessing horrors that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Yet he survived, somehow finding the strength to keep going, to place one foot in front of the other. As 1917 drew to a close, a new threat emerged on the Eastern Front. Russia, racked by revolution, withdrew from the war, freeing up vast numbers of German troops to reinforce the Western Front. The Germans, desperate to win before the full might of the American forces could be brought to bear, prepared for a final, massive offensive. March 1918. The German Spring Offensive, also known as the Kaiserschlacht, began. It was a series of 5 massive attacks designed to break the Allied lines and seize victory. The first, Operation Michael, was launched with devastating force against the British Fifth Army. Tommy's unit was directly in the path of this onslaught. The Germans employed new stormtrooper tactics, infiltrating behind Allied lines, bypassing strongpoints, and creating chaos. The British lines buckled and broke in places, and a desperate fighting retreat began. Tommy and his comrades fought tooth and nail, defending every trench, every village, every patch of ground. They were constantly on the move, exhausted, outflanked, but refusing to surrender. He saw the fighting skills of the German stormtroopers firsthand, their speed and ferocity. It was a war of movement again, but a retreat, a harrowing experience of constant threat and dwindling resources. He helped stem the tide, resisting the German advance with every ounce of his being. As the German offensive lost momentum, running out of supplies and men, the tide began to turn. The arrival of fresh American troops, though still relatively small in number, provided a crucial morale boost. The Allies, now reinforced and bolstered by American enthusiasm, prepared their own counteroffensive. August 8, 1918, the Black Day of the German Army. The Battle of Amiens marked the beginning of the 100 Days Offensive, the final, decisive push of the war. Tommy was part of this grand offensive, fighting alongside Canadian and Australian forces, supported by hundreds of tanks. The combined arms assault shattered the German lines. He saw the Germans retreating in disarray, their morale broken. The fighting was still fierce, but now there was a sense of purpose, a tangible hope that victory was within reach. He pushed forward, day after day, week after week, through the Hindenburg Line, through the devastated landscape, chasing the retreating enemy. He participated in the Battle of the Selle and the Battle of the Sambre, each a vital step towards the ultimate goal. November 11, 1918. The guns fell silent at 11 a.m. Armistice. The war was over. Tommy stood in a muddy field, the silence deafening after 4 years of constant noise. He had survived. He had witnessed the entirety of the Great War, from its bloody beginnings to its exhausted end. He had faced machine guns, artillery, gas, tanks, planes, and the relentless psychological torment of the trenches. He had seen friends perish, felt the terror of battle, and carried the heavy burden of memory. Tommy returned to England, to his quiet village in Dorset. The world he came back to was irrevocably changed. Millions were dead, empires had crumbled, and a generation was scarred. He carried no medals for extraordinary acts of heroism, though his survival itself was a testament to unimaginable bravery and resilience. He was just a soldier, a Tommy who had done his duty. His scars were not always visible. The constant drumming of shells lingered in his ears, the smell of gas occasionally wafted through his memories, and the faces of fallen comrades haunted his dreams. He rarely spoke of his experiences, finding it impossible to convey the reality of the front to those who hadn't been there. He found solace in the simple routines of farm life, in the quiet beauty of the English countryside. Tommy Atkins, like countless others, represented the unbreakable spirit of those who fought in the First World War. He was a man who endured the very worst of humanity, faced death in 1,000 forms, and somehow, through sheer determination and an inexplicable stroke of luck, emerged from the inferno. His story, though fictionalized here, echoes the experiences of thousands of real soldiers who walked those muddy fields, who fought in those brutal battles, and who, against all odds, survived to tell their silent tales. Their sacrifice, their suffering, and their incredible resilience shaped the 20th century, and continue to remind us of the profound cost of war and the enduring strength of the human spirit. His journey was a testament not just to survival, but to the quiet courage of an ordinary man thrust into extraordinary circumstances. His life, after the war, was a living memorial to the millions who did not return, a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience can endure.